Hi, everybody. I'm going to get us started. So first of all, I want to acknowledge that you will see me trembling. It's not because I'm very nervous. It's because it's very cold in here, and I'm from Puerto Rico, where I'm used to 100-degree weather. So let's just start there. So yeah, welcome. We're going to be talking about HMIS project monitoring today. Woo! So my name is Joan Domenech. I am a CSH provider. I have been a TA provider for about 6-ish years. Before that, I did HMIS and I did coordinated entry, not at the same time because that's a lot. And yeah, I'll let my co-presenters present themselves real quick, and then we'll get a sense of who we have in the room. We'll probably not do that. I got you. Just got it on mute.
No, it died. Hi, I'm Jessica Lurs. I've been a HUD TA provider for about 2 years now, but about 18 to 20, I don't want to tell you that, years of experience. I don't look it, I know, but in affordable housing and homeless services. Prior to coming to TA, I was a CoC lead agency collaborative applicant, where we also house the HMIS lead agency in Northern Virginia. But just before 2019, I moved to the great city of Pittsburgh, which if you've never been, I encourage you to come. And love doing outdoor activities, so pass it on to Eric.
Hey folks, good morning. My name is Eric Gammons. I work for TAC up in Boston. I've been in the TA world for about 4 years now, but have been in the CoC or homeless field for 20 or 30 years or so. And I definitely look it, so. So I'm also freezing because I'm from South Louisiana, but I've also been an HMIS lead, done a lot of work around HMIS, of course, and governance, and so glad to have everybody here. And for you in the back, believe it or not, there's available seats in the front. I know that's a shocker, but you're welcome to come up. So thanks. Turn it back over to you, Joe.
Thank you, babe. They all work now. So we wanted to get a sense of who we have in the room, so we'll just go old school, raise your hand, just to get an idea. So who in here is a CoC lead? Okay, quite a few. It's always good to see in a conference that is HMIS kind of driven, so good. HMIS leads, okay, a lot more. Who is either a software vendor, few. Service providers, just a few. Okay, and any other? All right, you want to shout out? What are you representing? An admin. Okay, yeah, we should have said HMIS kind of. Okay, it's okay. You don't have to identify. All right, perfect. So wanted to get a sense where you're at in your community process in terms of project monitoring. So raise your hand if you are conducting monitoring and it's going good. Okay, probably why we have a lot of people in this session. So good, you're at the right place. Yes, but you kind of need a little help to make it better. Got a few of those. No, and we definitely need help. Okay. Shy people because, you know, there's not adding up, but it's okay. No, and we just don't want to do project monitoring. Can be honest, we're here. Okay, thank you for the honesty. All right, perfect. So the learning objectives of today is that we are hoping that you leave with a clear understanding of why project monitoring is important, and that you understand the key components of project monitoring, and that you leave with some best practices so that you can go and implement and get some tools and examples. We'll also be identifying common findings and solutions for those common findings that you get. All right, so why is project monitoring important? Okay, let's retract. Why do you all think project monitoring is important? Any brave people? Fast reader right here. I have a fast reader. I was slow. I like it. Yes, yes. Anybody else?
Improving project performance.
Improving project performance. Are you a fast reader, or did you not see that? Fast reader? That was the second bullet, so yes. Yes. Anybody else? Why is project monitoring important?
We're about to launch a new implementation in Multnomah, Oregon, so I'm primarily concerned about compliance to our new policies over the next year, 2 years, forever.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
I do feel like, good data, tells a story. And so like by doing good monitoring and holding people accountable and continuing training, then we have more accurate data and we can better tell the story of what's going on in our community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I have somebody else.
It's for the camera.
I mean, basically, sorry. That's the second time I've done. Sorry. Basically, I mean, to add on there, it helps us find the solutions that we can have for the clients, so we can help them out in the best way. And if our data isn't accurate or somebody isn't entering in accurately, how can we do that to our best ability? So
Absolutely. Michelle is your name? That is said perfectly. I always, in my role as a TA provider, I've always want to go back because we're a few steps away from serving clients directly, and we always have to think about like how is what we're doing improving the services that we're delivering, improving the lives of the people that we're serving. And I think that is, for me, how I see monitoring being important. Yeah, that is accurate, but why? Why does that matter? It matters so that we can understand our system, and it matters so that it's accurately reflecting our system and that we can use that as a baseline for system improvement and improving services. So all of these technical things that we'll get into, I always like tying it back to how is this improving the lives of people that we're serving. So yeah, good. I didn't have to do anything in that slide. That's perfect. We just got to keep asking them. All right, so yeah, these are basically what we talked about. I have to repeat that. Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about this. Who has seen this document before? Okay, very few. So this is an old-ish document. It was published in 2018, and it's a really good document because it lays out a vision for technical assistance as it relates to data and a data strategy and improving how we use data. And so HUD published this, and it had 3 goals in it, and I think that they relate really well to monitoring. So one of the first goals that it says, so this is a goal meant for technical assistance, but that through technical assistance, we're supporting you to be able to accomplish some of these, but this is not a measurement that you need to have specifically for yourself, but it is a vision that HUD has for the future. Which the future is technically now, but COVID happened because this was 2018, but yes. So one, that you would be using your data to optimize systems of care through making ongoing system performance improvements and determining optimal resource allocation, kind of what we were just talking about. Number 2, that communities would operate data systems that allow for accurate, comprehensive, timely data collection, usage, and reporting. So this one's more on data quality, the other one's more on like system performance. And then 3, that federal government coordinates to receive and use data to make informed decisions in coordination with other data sets across and within agencies. So this is more along the lines of, now we have good data, we're using that good data, now it's about how do we tell a complete story? And you're gonna need other data sources to do that. HMIS is a big data source, but how do you kind of coordinate with others to do that? And so HUD laid down 3 kind of strategies to get to achieving those 3 goals, and these are those 3 overarching strategies. If you look at the document, it has a lot of strategies within, but these are the big ones. So 1, improving your capacity, the community's capacity to set up, operate, and benefit from data systems. So you're here in NHSDC. That's one of the ways that we do that, is through having these conferences. Who has read some documents from the HMIS LEAD series? Okay, yes, hands raised. That one's getting popular. Okay, so that was another strategy, is putting out documents. I've heard a few people say that every time they have a question, they get a 40-page HUD manual. You're lucky. When I started, there was nothing. I started implementing coordinated entry, and they would like just go around and see what other people are doing. You had to travel and see what people are doing. So it's challenging because you have to read a lot, but it definitely is helpful. So another of the strategies is to that data systems collect accurate, comprehensive, and timely data, and that's where all of these strategies related to data quality. The HMIS Lead Series has the DQMP guide, which is really good. It has a lot of good examples and so forth. And then the third strategy is that continuums and interested parties use data to improve efforts to end homelessness. So yeah, those are all kind of strategies that are either we're doing through NHSDC, we're doing through products, we're doing through just the who participates in the HMIS lead calls, a lot of people. So yeah, those are kind of TA strategies to help you all improve on those. And yeah, so that was kind of level setting, and now we're going to dive into the actual nuts and bolts of project monitoring. Pass it to you. Do you want me to click, or do you want to click?
Let's see. You could click if you don't mind, but let me get in here. Oh my God. You didn't need your slide deck, and I do. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about like what do you actually have to do in your communities to monitor projects using HMIS. We talked a bit about like what is HUD strategy on what TA providers should be doing to ultimately help you all get to a place where you're using data to make informed decisions. And so what we're going to talk about now is the parts that you'll be working on. So when you're looking at your components of HMIS project monitoring, you're really looking at three things, kind of the compliance piece, your data quality piece, and then your performance. So your compliance is really when you're looking at your privacy standards, you know, what are the laws and regulations that you have to make sure that you're following. It's those kind of like, yes, are you doing these things? Because if you're not, like, you're in trouble. Not really, but you know, you're out of compliance. And the next piece is probably where a lot of you are spending your time when you're doing this sort of thing. So it's your data quality, right? Are your project putting in timely? Are they doing accurate data? Is it consistent? And how complete is the data quality? But really what we want to get to is like all of those things to help us start to improve performance. So are we really meeting the outcomes that we originally said we would do in the grant agreements? So, you know, again, we keep talking about how HMIS data is helping us like improve the lives of people who are experiencing homelessness. And that's when we start to get to this performance piece. Like, what is happening at that project level? Are there things that need to change so that people who are experiencing homelessness are either like exiting to permanent housing faster or maintaining permanent housing? And so we want to really just like have you start to think about those performance pieces. Okay. So some of you said you are currently doing some monitoring. There were a few of you that said no and you don't want to. That's okay. But just to get a sense of like who is currently involved in your monitoring? How many of you, and we keep talking about how like CoC lead is not really a thing, but like your CoC lead, your collaborative applicant, how many of you have that entity involved in the monitoring process? Okay. What about the HMIS lead? Okay. What about the participating homeless service providers? Local funders? And then any other HMIS stakeholders or CoC stakeholders? Okay, so HMIS is really like doing the bulk of this for many of your communities. You know, if you don't know who's involved, you should kind of go to your local policies and procedures to make sure that it's written down. We want to make sure that all of that is very clear to all of the programs that are going to be monitored, but also for yourselves as HMIS leads, like what are you actually responsible for? What are some of these other entities responsible for? But we'll talk a little bit about like what the HUD regulations are so that you know. But what we talk about today, there'll be some baseline things that are required, but ultimately at the local level, you have to make some additional decisions. and you know your communities best, you really have to make sure that you have the right people involved, the right amount of times that you're going out monitoring, all of those things. But we'll talk about sort of like what's the minimum standard. Okay. So who is involved in project monitoring? You know, really any project that uses HMIS, regardless of the funding source. So I know that that can be sometimes challenging. If you have agencies that are not receiving CoC program funds or ESG funds, they're receiving some other homeless service money, or they're getting like fundraising and they're in HMIS, like you really should be monitoring them and holding them to the same kind of standards that you are all of the programs in HMIS. You know, while like HMIS participating organizations and you all as HMIS leads are really the biggest players in all of this, the continuum of care really should be an active participant. You should be sharing with them like what the results of monitoring might look like, what are some of the plans for improvement that you're doing with community members or agencies. And telling them the good and the not so good. Like what are the things that need to improve at the project level so that you can continue to improve your system. And the CoC should also be involved in approving what your monitoring checklist or tool looks like. They need to be involved in that, helping in the development of it, making sure that there's like written documentation of what that's going to look like. And then like, how are you going to monitor your projects? Oh, I forgot the last one. Hold on, let me go back. And then also like who within the project needs to be in there. So you may have a couple of different people at the project that need to be a part of the monitoring process. Some communities have case managers who are entering data right into HMIS. Some of them have other staff who are then taking written documents down and then entering it for them. Project management staff might be involved. Like you need to kind of connect with those local agencies to figure out who's putting information into the system, who has access, who has a login, so that you can do all of those security measures, all of that data quality, and all of those performance checks for everyone that might be involved in the process. Okay, so where should project monitoring take place? Well, on site, remotely, and a combination of the two, right? There are a couple of things that you can only do on site. Things like making sure that people have firewalls on the computer or logins to certain things. But there are some data quality components that you can do remotely, and you can think about kind of that combination of it. Some of you probably serve a very large geographic area, and doing an on-site monitoring every single year for every single project really does not make the most sense. And so you need to be thinking about those kinds of things, like how many staff do you have that can be involved in this? Are you going to do a full monitoring on site every year? Maybe you're going to do a staggered approach where you're going to do kind of like annually the data quality piece where you can do that remotely, but then maybe every other year you're going out in person, you're looking at like those on-site kinds of activities. Anybody doing that currently, kind of that combination of, or are you all trying to just like be everywhere all the time? All right, so a couple of you are doing combination. Did you know that you could do that kind of a combination approach? Okay, perfect. And then how often should you do it? So your regulation is at least annually, you should be monitoring. But there are going to be times where you may need to do it more frequently, right? Like maybe you have a particular program or an end user that's just really struggling and you're providing technical assistance to them. It makes sense to maybe do it more frequently. But again, you want to make sure that whoever's being monitored is aware of what your plan is, how often you're going to do it. Yesterday when we talked about, I don't know if some of you were here, but when we talked about HMIS lead monitoring, so when you're getting monitored, we don't want it to be a gotcha moment. It's the same for your service providers, right? Like communicating with them when you're going to come, and then thinking about the times of year when you're doing it. Maybe you try to coincide the HMIS monitoring with some of the other CoC monitoring that's going on. Maybe you do it when people are starting to like think about doing capers and closeouts of programs. And then maybe there are times that you choose not to do it because your service providers are very busy with other things. Like Holidays are probably hard for some of your emergency shelter programs because they're thinking about donations and all of the things that are coming in. Kind of an additional like stress of being monitored might be challenging. And then also when you all are very busy, you don't want to be doing that maybe when the LSA is due or when there's some sort of application due. Like, make sure that you're thinking about it, but the minimum that you need to do is at least annually. Yes.
I wouldn't call it necessarily monitoring, but when you train new agencies, you definitely want to be looking at the data that they're entering, because they need some kind of extra hand-holding and extra support. Usually we train folks, we give them the keys to the kingdom, go have your thing. APR is due, we're like, what? They're not even doing entries, they're just entering. So I think that definitely requires some, planning to prevent you going in and having to clean up a lot. So that is another instance where it's not technically monitoring, but you're keeping an eye out and providing a little bit extra support.
Perfect. Okay. Eric's going to walk us through what should be included.
Take my stand away. Can I have that back? That one-handed. Sorry. Sorry about that, folks. This arm has stopped working for whatever reason, so I'm doing the one-handed presentation today. So what is included in HMIS project monitoring visit? Well, first, let's go back to what Jessica said and John said. We should be talking to the CoC, right? So the CoC should have governance around the expectations of its providers or its CoC recipients. Those documents or that governance can include data quality plan, can include HMIS policies and procedures, the privacy policy, privacy plan, and any other local policies and procedures that the CoC has or that the community has. You should have those documentation, that information when you're preparing a visit or a monitoring. And I'm going to say visit a lot, but I know there can be a virtual visit or it's going to be an on-site in-person visit. So some of the things you're going to look for or prepare for is, are all the forms between the HMIS lead and the participating agency in place? Meaning, have you done your job and have they done their job? Certainly you need user agreements, right? Anybody that's using the system should have signed a user agreement. But you may also have participating agency agreements. You may also have some other agreements between the agency and the CoC. You want to know what the roles and responsibilities are of that participating agency prior to doing a monitoring visit. And that includes your expectations, but also includes the expectations of the CoC. Do I have the clicker? Oh, hey, watch out, it's magic. So the HMIS policies and procedures, you should have them, right? So how many folks have seen or have HMIS policies and procedures? All hands go up, hopefully. Most hands go up. If you don't have policies and procedures, that's something to begin working on immediately with your CoC and your providers and your HMIS data committee or whatever you have working in your CoC toward improving your data and telling your story through your HMIS system. So those policies and procedures should indicate how monitoring is performed, who's involved, how often it occurs, and what happens after the monitoring, right? And everything should be transparent. Those policies and procedures should not be sitting on a shelf, collecting dust since 10 years ago when you wrote them. They should be active, they should be reviewed annually, and they should be transparent. A website, however you relay information to your providers. Within those policies and procedures, they should indicate at least who's involved and how often you're going to monitor projects. Remember that when you're monitoring, this is what you think about. This is not checking off a box, right? You're not saying, I'm monitoring. You're saying, I'm going in there to help my providers improve all aspects of their HMIS data collection. That's the idea behind monitoring, not going in there going, gotcha, you're bad, fix your stuff, right? You're going in there to create an actionable, measurable, and time-bound event that's going to increase the capacity of your providers. So, in addition, I know everybody has a privacy plan, right? Hands up, privacy plan, security plan. People don't know if they have a plan. Those plans are COC's responsibility to have in place for every COC. So not the HMIS lead's responsibility, the COC's responsibility. Certainly you're going to play a part in those. But those plans are your guidelines, your backbone of your monitoring. You want to ensure that your providers are following those plans. And if they're not, monitoring is a perfect time to bring them up to that standard. In addition, data quality plan, right? Everybody has one of those. That's the frustrating thing most times, is getting data quality up. But remember, monitoring should be not about targets, but about baselines. So whatever your baseline is as far as data quality, that's what you're going in to monitor for. Not, hey, we're shooting for 99% and you're at 95. Well, if the baseline's 95, then that's a good monitoring. Certainly you want to improve, but again, not the gotcha. Oh, I didn't, that was too quick. You have the clicker, John? Yeah, okay. So transparency is really key in monitoring. And what does that mean? It means you want to let whoever you're monitoring know everything you're going to be doing during that monitoring, all the people you're going to want to talk to, all the documents you're going to want to see, and whatever guidelines, baselines, governance, requirements, responsibilities that you're going to be monitoring for, they need to know ahead of time and prepare for that monitoring. I mean, it makes sense, but a lot of times monitoring is just something you do. You go in, you do the thing, you check the box, and you leave. That's not what it's about. If you bring that transparency to your providers, then internally they may start having the expectation of getting up to those standards, right? If you just go in and, hey, you're not doing this, and leave, then are they really self-improving in all areas? Probably not. But if you provide them with all the expectations, then they may improve in areas that you might not even monitor in. I know Jessica mentioned monitoring doesn't have to be all-inclusive. You may just be going in there for one thing, data quality, but bring the entire monitoring expectations to them. These are all the things that we have expectations for. This is the thing we're going to be looking at today. Make sense, everybody? Good to go? And then, of course, this is a big one, right? Findings. Like, let them know ahead of time, hey, if we have findings, this is what's going to occur. We're going to set up a plan. We're going to have a deadline. This is the expectations of change we're going to have. But before you even have findings, just let them know it's going to ease them up a little bit, right? Make them relax, maybe pull the curtain back a little bit further so you can see what's going on and maybe detect what actually is affecting their data quality or their privacy concerns. Monitoring's not easy. I've done a lot of monitoring, and people tend to pull the curtains, right? Nothing to see here, and only provide you with what you ask. But if you're very transparent about what's going to happen afterwards, then they may be a little more open to letting you know about the issues they're having. So examples of what can be reviewed in a visit, the real key. So and when I talk about visit in this case, typically it's going to be on site. When you go on site, what's the first thing you're going to look for? Where are users entering data? That's so incredibly important, especially around privacy and security. So that's what you need to know. Who's accessing the system and where are they accessing that system at? Let me see the computers. What kind of internet connections do you have? Are you Wi-Fi? Are you landline? Like, how secure is it? Are there firewalls? All those things. Also, as you hopefully know, you should have a public notice above or around in plain sight of any computer where a client level data is being collected. So that's important, but what does that public notice say? Typically it's going to say, hey, if you need to see the privacy notice, we have one available. So what else are you going to look for? Where are those privacy notices? Are they available, right? Can you hand me one right now from this computer you're entering data? You know, that's key, because just saying there is a privacy notice means nothing if you don't have one available for somebody that wants to look at it. And then this one I run into a lot, users that are no longer employees. So as you, as HMIS lead, if you're part of a monitoring and you're going in, have that list of users for that participating agency and go through one by one. Does John still work here? Does John work with clients? And do they enter data? Do they have a reason to have a user license, right? Because I have seen so many times where just list and list of users who haven't touched the system in 6 weeks, 6 months, sometimes a year. A lot of times they don't even work for the agency anymore, and they have an open user license. So big privacy, big security concern. Yep. Next. So this is a great time to improve data quality on your end, especially, and when you're thinking about monitoring, I always think about, when am I going to do this? This is like a horrible time to do it, right? It's the LSA, it's the SPMs, it's the HIC, the PIT, all the other reports are due. Summer's a great time to do monitoring. Not saying you have to do it in the summer, but it's a great time because part of that monitoring can be making sure your project descriptor elements are correct. Because as you know, sometimes participating agencies don't actually know what they do. They know how to do the things, but they don't know what it's called in HMIS speak, right? So perfect time to start asking about their unit inventory, about their components. You know, are you an emergency shelter? Because I only see folks coming in and leaving here, right? So they may have indicated the wrong project type to you. Perfect time to do that. In addition, your federal funding sources, they may have picked up new federal funding sources, or some may have ended. It's a great time to update that information too, while you're sitting down with the folks during your on-site visit. Here's a key, and it's perfect timing. Data elements have changed. A lot of people use hard copy intake forms, right? So ask them for their intake forms. Have they updated them to the new data element standards, data standards, right? Because if they haven't, then their users are going to be trying to figure out how to make that hard copy fit into the new data standards. So again, we're monitoring, but really we're also improving at the same time. That's the whole idea behind this. Oh, I don't know if I was done. Did she go back? Yeah. Okay. So in addition, while you're monitoring, and this is like important to me, has data quality gone up or down? And if it's gone down, this is a great time to ask why. What's going on? Maybe it is that old paper copy intake form. But if data quality is improved for the participating agency, this is a great time to like give them a hoorah, like pat them on the back, let them know how much better they're doing than last year, because they may not have an idea. They just know they have to do HMIS. So this is a great time to, wow, things have really improved. We don't know what you're doing, or maybe some changes that we recommended are working, but let them know that they're improving. So monitoring can be, let them know where their faults are, but it also can be, let them know where they've really made improvements. We're providing just a couple sample checklists, and really all this is things that you might want to collect. I know Jessica mentioned the difference between compliance and data quality, so here's an idea of things you might want to look or collect for compliance, user agreements, agency agreements. What's in an agency agreement you want to look at? Roles and responsibilities, right? What are the expectations of the participating agency? Meeting attendance, you know, a lot of COCs have HMIS user meetings, and there's an expectation of attendance, so, or it could be a data committee attendance, or training attendance. So if you have those available, then you're able to indicate to the participating agency, hey, so your folks haven't been attending this training, right? Or haven't been attending the user group. Of course, the privacy notice, the public notice, ROIs. If your COC requires release of information to enter client level data, or not to enter, but to share client level data, then are those ROIs being completed? Are they dated? Are they up to date? Or have they expired? So things to look at, things to ask for from that participating agency. Again, if you're technically proficient, you can check their firewalls, make sure that their systems have antivirus software. Big one, right, is your screen blanking out, and does it take a password to get back on? That's hard to do virtually. Definitely hard to do if you're just calling them and asking them. So when you're on site, take advantage. Like go to every computer and test it. Make sure that's happening, because it's our clients that we're trying to protect with that. We don't want screens with people's information on forever so anybody can look at that. And of course, audit logs, that's the back end stuff that you can do as a HMIS lead, a system administrator, checking how often they're logging in, what they're doing while they're logging in. Most software vendors have audit logs. I think it's a requirement. So you're able to go in there and see what's going on with the users that are accessing the system. And then data quality, again, looking at those forms. Of course, the APR, the CAPR, is a great place to look at data quality, right? It's part of the report. And most times, the participating agency can run the same report and look at that same data. So you can actually have them run the reports. When you come to do the monitoring, y'all look at it together, talk about where their deficiencies are in data quality and where their improvements are. Timeliness, everybody, look, raise your hand. Every provider is timely in their data entry, right? No? Oh, well. That's a hard one, right? So it's continual work. And that's a great time during monitoring to examine why their timeliness is not where it needs to be. Like, what is the process for collecting data and entering it into the system? List of participants. So list of participants is great for monitoring what? Can anybody tell me? It's part of the data quality. Go ahead. Duplication's good, but the real key, go ahead in the back. So why you want a list of participants is to ensure that they're entering everybody that they're working with into the system, right? The completeness piece. So it's really hard for you can't look at a CAPR and tell if everybody's in there, right? So you need that list to compare with who they're entering into the system. In the back?
What if they don't collect hard data?
I didn't hear it.
What if they don't collect hard data?
What if they use HMIS as their main mode of collecting data, like they don't have hard copies?
Yeah, I would recommend just for risk management, for controls, to have a secondary list of participants. I would recommend that to the participating agency. Like, you need an additional list somewhere that keeps track of who you're actually working with, because typically you want some sort of control, which means dual list, right? One in HMIS and one somewhere else.
I can recommend stuff, but if we have a large agency that processes a lot of people, I'm thinking of like a large emergency shelter, like night by night, and I don't control their funding.
Yep. I would think you would, for shelter, it's a little bit easier. You can look at capacity rate. You have 99 people out of 100, so there should be 99 people in the system. That would be a little bit easier, especially for large numbers. I realize that when it comes to maybe the day shelter, this becomes a very difficult process. But certainly for shelter, for housing projects, which were, incredibly important around LSA. Am I running late? I keep thinking I'm running late. But for the housing projects, definitely you want to know that what their bed capacity is and who's in their beds is accurate, right? You don't want people lingering in beds when they've left the program 2 months ago. And again, if you've been monitoring and you monitored last year, did they resolve some of those concerns? They should have resolved findings, but maybe concerns that you made or recommendations you made. Did they take those recommendations from the last time you monitored? Oh, you can go. So this is just another example. Again, this one is broken down into off-site, on-site. These slides are going to be available to y'all through the Hoover app, so you're welcome to use this, but don't think it's all-inclusive. Don't think it's HUD recommended. It's just an example of potential checklists that you can use to prepare for your monitoring. And now we're going to have a test, a quiz. So we're handing out what you can do, because you're kind of scattered out, just kind of pair up or threesome up. We're just going to have you, get your number 2 pencils out too. Can you go one more? Yep. Oh, did I miss a slide? I might have missed a slide. I'll go back to it. So here's the thing, guys. You're preparing to monitor for an emergency shelter. I want you to think about, and you don't have to write these down, but you certainly can. I want you to think about, well, let me see. Actually, need one. So I want you to think about what you're going to be requesting from the continuum of care, from the HMIS system administrator, from the agency. So what do I need from each of those 3? And then what am I going to be looking at on site? And who do I need to talk to on site? And as you think about this list, this is the same kind of list you're going to provide to your agency you're monitoring. It's the same thing, right? Here's the things I'm going to look for and talk to and want. You're providing it to them. So I'll give you, how much time we have? 5 minutes. All right. Let's wrap it up. We're going to do a little bit of report out, so if we could finalize our list. And so I don't need you to report out the entire list, just certain parts. We're going to call out different areas. The first one's going to be, what would you ask from the continuum of care? Who wants to report out on that section? Raise your hand, and we'll get a mic to you.
You should look for your policies and procedures and make sure that it's updated to the year and that the agency that you're going to has a copy of this updated version of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you want to make sure that the CoC's most updated version of the PMP is the one that the service provider has. Outstanding. Good one. Anybody else with the CoC?
It's a history of involvement with the CoC. Then, like you're saying, the meetings and, how involved is this shelter with the CDC? What kind of history do they have?
Yeah, so engagement with the CoC, how much are they participating, including data committees, stuff like that, right? Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. What about the HMIS system administrator? What do we need from those fine folks? Don't be shy. I heard all y'all talking. Hopefully it wasn't about what's for lunch.
A lot. Like the trainings, the data quality. I mean, what are they doing for data quality management?
Okay, go slow, sorry. Go slow.
Data quality management, what are they doing? You know, systems do they have in place for program
Okay.
evaluation, user audits?
What is it?
User audits.
User audits, perfect, perfect. Anybody else? Somebody in the back? Joanne's back there with a mic, just waiting. Anybody in the front? Go ahead.
I think everything this gentleman said, but I added the monitoring notification would come from the HMIS. Are we talking about the program or the HMIS lead here?
So in this case, the system administrator would be like, what do I need from the system, right? What do I need from the HMIS database
see.
as
So
part of the
that-
monitoring?
Okay, so then everything this gentleman said, meeting attendance, of course, to reconcile that, and any trainings that have been completed, any user requirements.
Beautiful, trainings you've been completed, right? Attendance, who attended, do they still work for your agency, right? Okay, beautiful.
Let's go
What?
team back. Let's go team in the back. We can do it. Let's go.
What are you going to be asking from the agency you're monitoring?
I have a completed self-evaluation, a place to work, a sampling of files or rosters, making sure the HMIS rep is available, access to workstations, and a data quality report.
Outstanding, nice. Who else?
I can help out Team Back.
Nice.
So on site, we're on site. God, I'm going to fail. I hope I don't fail. So if we're on site, we just want to check out the firewalls and the user agreements. She probably just said all this while I was moving. That they have things that the passwords time out, that they don't have their passwords posted, stuff like that. And then I guess while you're there, you're going to check out, you know, that all the users are current, stuff like that.
Perfect, perfect. So when you say users are current, the great thing is provide me a list of your employees that are accessing the system, and I'm going to compare it to my user list in the system, right? So system admin, you get the user list from them. Agency, you get the user list from them, and then you compare the two, right? So again, you're monitoring, but you're also improving, right, at the same time. It's all about capacity building. Okay, so what would you look at on site? I already heard a couple things. Anybody else come up with something you want to see on site?
Not just on site, but like reviewing
Okay.
also like remotely. But like data completeness, timeliness, exits to permanent housing, utilization, clients with non-cash benefits, employment, health insurance, time from enrolled to move in.
So I hear a lot about accuracy. That's what I'm hearing, right? So I want to know who has non-cash benefits, because there's no way for me to tell if that's accurate in the system by just looking at the system. So asking an agency to provide me a list of those folks is a way that I can check data quality accuracy. We have, in the back?
So if this is an emergency shelter, then you need to check their beds.
Yes, the number of beds, thank you. How many times have I walked in a place that said they had 44 beds, and then when you count them, there's 32?
I'm a back.
There you go, back. Go.
Whatever, we're winning.
I would say you'd want to check out the space where they're doing the client interviewing, making sure that it's private, away from everyone, you know, for
Right.
confidentiality.
Which way is that monitor facing, right? That's the real key. Like, is it facing the public or is it facing a private area?
So I have a question, because I really like what you're saying about checking on the accuracy and checking on who's got, you know, non-cash benefits and stuff like that. So, but we have someone who goes out from our compliance department, and because she's already going out to check on all kinds of other like financial issues. And for us, she checks out, she works in another department, but she checks out She's going anyways, so she checks out our stuff for like, are they posting passwords? I don't know that we could unload on her like all of the, like now check out all of this stuff about like more HMIS stuff, you know? But, and I don't know how we would check that remote. This is a question. Because they can't send us PII over
Right.
an email. So any input, because I do wonder about, you know, how do we know that what's going in the system? It's got no reconciliation to know that it's accurate.
Right. So, and what I'm thinking when I hear you, and maybe this is not possible where you are, but your HMIS monitoring, I think Jessica mentioned, doesn't have to be a solo event. It could be part of a monitoring, a CoC monitoring, right? Because like your poor providers, they have enough to do, all the things they have to do. They don't want to be monitored twice, one by HMIS, one by the CoC. Just combine those. So when you mentioned that, I would think, maybe I'd want to send somebody with that person to take some of that load off, right? Or do that section, but make it part of the monitoring that she's doing or that person's doing. I think we need to move on.
I have a quick suggestion on the
Yes, please.
accuracy stuff. Because it is hard to kind of monitor absolutely everybody on accuracy, using your reporting period when you look at your system performance measures, when you look at other, there's certain outliers that just don't make sense. Like this person is making $5,000, you know, this person has been in the system 5 years. And so those are all kind of outliers that you can look at. And kind of, if there are recurring outliers within a specific agency, that kind of flags, okay, I need to pay a little bit more attention to this particular project or agency. So those are just things that you can kind of look out. It's like investigation mode that can help you look at accuracy a little bit better. Yeah.
That's a great point. And we don't really have time to cover the last one, but the idea of who is it you want to talk to at the agency during your visit, it doesn't need to only be the supervisor or the project manager. Talk to the users, right? Get an idea of what's going on, how they check things, how they check for accuracy, right? So don't limit it, because that's what's going to happen normally is a project manager is going to try to put you in a room, give you stuff, and try not to let you go anywhere. So just make sure ahead of time, again, being completely transparent, we want to talk to these people. Can you have them available? Is it possible? Is there time in their day for us to visit with them and have a conversation? All right, I think okay, so after the project monitoring, everything went perfect. You go home, wipe your hands. Hey, that was a great job. That never happens. You're always going to find something. So I've never been to a monitoring where everything was perfect. I'm just saying, I've done a ton of monitorings. So the idea of it is, you just want to improve on those areas where they were weak, but you want to make it a project or a plan, meaning it's got to be timely. There needs to be action steps, right? It needs to be measurable. That's the real key. Can you measure it? Can you measure an improvement, right? If there's data quality issues, then what's the data quality improvement plan? And then who's involved, right? So after the monitoring, when you come out with the findings or concerns, you need to make sure the CoC knows about them also, or whatever that means, right? The CoC is different for all of you, like whoever that is. Could be the collaborative applicant, could be the CoC board, maybe it's the data committee that you're going to be reporting these results to, right? How do you know which one to report to? Should be somewhere in your governance or in your HMIS policies and procedures. What do I do with my findings? Who do I report them to? Again, all that needs to be transparent with the agency. And I mentioned this earlier, but acknowledge the good along with the bad. It's so important because providers are there to help folks experiencing homelessness. They're not there to enter data in the system. So you're asking them to do something that's not really within their mission, right? But it's so important to be able to tell their story that you have to encourage them to use the system. I'm not telling y'all anything you don't know already. And then again, who is informed by the results? Remember, the results need to be timelined, right? There needs to be an endpoint. By this date, we need you to do this, and it needs to be measurable. And lastly, so all in one, what that basically means is you're monitoring, you want to plan your monitoring the same time ESG plans are monitoring or CoC plans are monitoring. Do it all at one time. It's so much easier. Specify what's important with on-site and remote. So one of the keys here, again, mentioned earlier by Jessica, you don't have to monitor everything all the time, but be selective. I'm going to monitor these things virtually, and I'm going to monitor these things on-site. So just have a plan ahead of time. Don't go in there random. It's going to be a waste of time for you, and especially a waste of time for the participating agency. Again, actionable and measurable steps if they're needed, if there are findings, and acknowledge the good. And if you're transparent and you share everything you're going to be doing with them, you share the stuff you're going to be looking at, you share who you're going to be talking to, you're going to eventually, hopefully, build some trust with this agency. And what that means is improvement all the way around in your system. So I believe you're next, Jessica.
So tall. Okay, so, wow, I am really much shorter than you. So possible challenges with monitoring, this is not going to be new to any of you. We just want you to sort of think about when you're developing your plan, when you go back from this great session today and you sit down and you write your to-do list, like some of the things that you might want to consider. So logistics, right? Do you have limited staff to do this? Who all is involved in it? Do you have a compliance officer that goes out? Do you have the CoC like committee that goes out? Do you yourselves go out? Like, what are those logistics? How much area do you have to cover? How many agencies are there? All of that logistics is really going to be something that you need to think about, think through, so that you can make sure that you have a really well-developed monitoring plan and that you write it all down in those policies and procedures. Setting those clear expectations and roles. I mean, I think that this has sort of been the theme of most of what we've been hearing today, is just who's doing what, who's responsible for it, how are they going to do it, and then who's going to be accountable for following up with it? You know, who is going to go back out once you've developed that plan that's actionable and has a timeline? Are you going to make sure that the person is actually sticking to that plan? Or is it going to be a committee? Like, who's going to be involved in that process? Victim service providers, you know, one of the things that we really want to make sure we've been talking about all along is that monitoring isn't just a one-time thing. You should be having these relationships with all of your providers, including your victim service provider. So when you go out and you're doing monitoring and looking at those comparable databases, like making sure that they also are involved in, like, what are the expectations? What are the roles? What are you looking for? How are you making sure that that monitoring of that database is similar to what you're doing for your HMIS users? And then programs that aren't required, or programs that are in HMIS but aren't required to be. So we talked a little bit about those who maybe don't receive the funding sources that require it. One program that I'm thinking about is some of you might be moving into like home ARP. If you're starting to think about expanded coordinated entry, maybe you're going to ask your home ARP people to put things in HMIS. You know, how are you ensuring that everyone who is putting data in the system, regardless of the funding that they're receiving, is understanding what the expectation is and all of the different things that we talked about, the compliance, the data quality, and the performance. And again, you know, the reviewing your local standards. I think Eric said at least annually kind of taking a look at what things are. At the end of monitoring, it's kind of a nice like post-mortem activity to do, like, okay, here's what we've learned. Do we need to make changes? Has everybody exceeded the baseline by a lot, and maybe now we need to increase the baseline. We want everybody to stay here. Instead of 95, everybody did 99, so the new baseline's 99. But just thinking about those local standards as well. And then just some privacy policy specifics. Are there any local funding requirements that you need to make sure that you have? Those nuanced workflows that maybe some agencies, we talked about side of the day shelter side of thing compared to emergency shelters. And then, I don't know, I know a couple of you said that you were looking at the HMIS lead page on the HUD Exchange, but there's the data quality management, I think, policy baselines. I wrote it down and then I forgot to bring it over here, but that DQMP plan. Okay, thank you. Baseline requirements by project types. Again, thinking about your CoC buy-in, do you have incentives available? And then how do you enforce non-compliance with things, or if someone isn't improving, what does that process look like within your community? And then we keep talking about this, but you going to do monitoring, it shouldn't just sit at your desk. People need to know who's going to be informed of what that looks like. And then if you're doing annual monitoring for all of them, what we talked about, if that's just not feasible, if you cannot get out to every agency every single year, what are you doing to kind of look at those past monitoring results to do some risk? So was someone not really doing well? Maybe you do bump them up to the annual, and you're kind of high performers, you do a little less frequently. So there's a few tools that you can kind of access. A lot of these are on the HMIS HUD Exchange, but you have all of your, there's a monitoring tool that's an Excel file. There's some PDFs for a monitoring plan, but all kinds of things that you can use to help you in your process. And again, Eric said you'll have these slides if you liked any of the things that were in that checklist, something for you to think about as you're developing with your CoC, what your monitoring checklists and things will look like.
And another really important resource is look to your right, look to your left, ask others what they're doing, how they're monitoring, and share those experiences.
So we have a couple of minutes left. We're happy to take questions, and then we might have some on the app.
So we have a couple questions on the Hoover app. The first one is, what is the most important thing to monitor?
Go ahead.
So look, y'all, your HMIS leads, most of you, you know where the weaknesses are, right? That's what you're going to monitor, the weaknesses. What are the areas that you feel are weak? Or maybe you have a rotating monitor plan. I'm going to address privacy really in depth this year or this quarter, and I'm going to monitor for data quality next quarter, for compliance the following quarter, but there's no specific, most important thing to monitor. It's just where are the weaknesses in your system.
Yeah, and ideally, you want to tie that to your training plan. So you found out that this, exits, and there's certain things that people are just not doing good. You found that in your data quality. So you know that, what are you going to do about it? So monitoring itself, it's not going to improve necessarily. It's just going to highlight the need. It's like a dashboard in your car that says bing, bing, engine, so you need to fix that. And so you need to do that through training and through ongoing other things. So yeah, I think eventually next year you probably won't have the same issues because you adapted your training, hopefully. It's turnover, a lot of factors. But anyways, there's more questions.
Can you discuss, I got a big voice. Can you discuss
Oh, wait, sorry, so we're streaming, so we're trying to capture everything on mics.
Or I can repeat it.
Can you discuss the challenges of data quality monitoring and comparable databases? I said that with a big question mark at the end.
If your comparable database, if your VSP is receiving ESG or CoC money, then there's going to be a CAPE or an APR you're going to be able to look at, and then you can have that discussion by looking at that CAPE or at least on the completeness. You might not be able to address the accuracy. Again, I had that big trust, like bolded, like you have to build trust with your VSPs. They're not going to want you to see everything for obvious reasons, but you want them to share what they can with you. And a lot of times that may be an aggregate form, but at least you can have those discussions with them.
So they put their caper in their sage link themselves. So that, I mean.
But they could print a caper for you. Yeah, they should be able to. If not, go to your ESG recipient, either state or a local, and ask them for access to Sage. They can provide you access to Sage where you can look at those capers.
Thank you.
And yeah, I also, that would be helpful, but also talking. A lot of the times they can say, hey, I'm having issues understanding this, or I think like just by building the relationships, it's not the data, you won't see it, but I think that building those relationships, you can get a lot of that information and help target that and help them in that way.
If you were monitoring specifically program performance, project performance, could you give some examples of what you would be monitoring?
For performance?
Yeah.
So I think that you need to create a plan, a performance improvement plan. There's a really good toolkit. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the performance improvement toolkit. And it's all about kind of setting baselines. It's a community process. So I think that monitoring is important because you can look at your APR, you can look at the system performance reports, you can look at client level. I love looking at system performance reports because I could take the client level and do it by projects and see the length of time and see the other areas. But I think that beyond that, you first have to have like a community plan. And so that involves having a performance work group and creating data literacy in your community so that people understand what they should be looking at and they understand, okay, you're gonna monitor me, but like you haven't given me the resources. So I think the monitoring aspect is the easy aspect because you pull the SPM, you sort it by project, you look at outliers, who's doing better, who's doing worse, you look at your length of homelessness, who has the highest average, or you look at all these things, but the difficult part is creating that community process where you're actually, having those meetings, explaining to people what is length of homelessness, how do you increase your exit to permanent housing, how do you look at that because system level is related to project level, so how do you look at your APR, and instead of looking at this huge table, how do you actually understand, how do you zoom in and look at that length of homelessness field or that exits. And so I think it's creating that. So I know we're out of time and I can.
We're getting a little late.
Yeah, in that community plan though, like the other thing I would just add is like making sure that some of those expectations are realistic. I mean, I think I've heard a million times like our, average length of stay goal is 30 days. And like, we have nowhere for people to move. We have no affordable housing, right? Like, so have those conversations in those meetings. Like, what is realistic? What are you seeing? And then how are you going to try to get to those sort of like lofty goals of 30 days? And how are you going to help people move there? But, don't set people up for failure just because you're trying to set a standard that may not be attainable.
And don't set them yourself. Have the community set those goals. You don't want to be the HMIS person that said 30 days. No, it's a community process and you want them to be involved in that.
We just had one more in the Who app. It was around ROI and what's the best practice around length of time an ROI should. But really that's going to be, and whoever that was on the Zoom call, that's really going to be up to your community. In your privacy plan, you should indicate whether you're going to use an ROI and how often it needs to be updated. Also understand that those agencies may be falling under some funding that requires more strict ROIs, and then your state or your local government may have some policies around ROIs and sharing data. So
we will wrap up for the recording, but if you all have questions, we can stay back for a few minutes and answer those. Thank you for being here, and go Project Monitor. Let's go.